12 years ago, no one could have predicted how much one tiny kitten would change everything. If anyone had said that Daniel, the man who always wrinkled his nose at the thought of cats, would one day be completely devoted to one, it would have sounded impossible. He was convinced he was allergic, always brushing off the idea whenever his wife, Emily, begged him to get a cat. It became a running joke in their household, the endless back and forth where she pleaded, and he refused. Deep down, Emily suspected it wasn't really about allergies. Maybe Daniel just didn't know what it meant to have a pet that chose you unconditionally. Everything changed in a single moment. Emily had been scrolling through adoption posts when she saw the picture. A tiny, snow-white kitten with soft fur and the most curious blue eyes had been found abandoned, barely old enough to be away from his mother. Something about him pulled at her heart. Without overthinking it, she took a screenshot and sent it to Daniel. His response came almost instantly. "Cute. Whose cat is that?" She hesitated for just a second before replying, "Ours." Bringing Frosty home felt right from the very first day. Emily expected Daniel to keep his distance, to treat Frosty like a guest rather than a permanent member of their family. But Frosty had already made up his mind. From the moment he stepped into the house, he knew who his person was. Wherever Daniel sat, Frosty would climb into his lap. If Daniel worked on his laptop, Frosty pressed his tiny paws against his arm, making sure he knew he was there. Every night, Frosty chose to sleep on Daniel's side of the bed, curled up beside him as if he belonged there. At first, Daniel resisted, pretending not to be affected. But Emily noticed the small changes. The way he started reaching out to scratch Frosty's ears absent-mindedly. The way he let him curl up against his chest on lazy Sunday afternoons. One evening, Daniel turned to Emily and said, "You know, that was a fantastic decision." He would never outright admit that he had been wrong, never say the words Emily wanted to hear, but his actions spoke louder than anything else. Frosty wasn't just affectionate. He was endlessly curious. Water fascinated him more than anything else. Every time they turned on the faucet, he ran over, staring at the stream, tilting his head as if trying to figure out its secrets. Daniel noticed this and decided to see just how deep his curiosity ran. He started filling the sink with a little bit of water and tossing in small floating toys. Frosty, hesitant at first, pawed at them, watching the ripples under his tiny paws. Day by day, Daniel added a little more water, letting Frosty decide how far he wanted to go. One day, he filled the bathtub with just a couple of inches of water, enough for Frosty to stand in. To their amazement, he didn't panic or run away. He simply stood there, swishing his tail, letting the water touch his paws. From that moment, bath time wasn't something Frosty needed to be forced into. It was something he asked for. Whenever Emily took a shower, Frosty would slip inside the bathroom, tail held high, stepping onto the wet floor as if it were completely normal. That was his way of letting them know he was ready. The real surprise came when they went on vacation. Their rental house had a small swimming pool, and every time Daniel swam, Frosty would sit at the edge, watching, his head tilting in fascination. One afternoon, Daniel called him over. Frosty hesitated, paws gripping the edge, eyes darting between Daniel and the water. And then, with a boldness that took them both by surprise, he jumped in. For a moment, Emily held her breath, unsure if he would panic. But Frosty didn't struggle. He paddled toward Daniel with perfect rhythm, his tiny paws moving instinctively. Daniel caught him, holding him up with a wide grin on his face. Seeing them together, swimming, playing, curled up afterward, was something Emily would never forget. It was a bond that had taken years to build, yet somehow it had formed between them effortlessly. As the years passed, Frosty became more than just a pet. He became part of the very fabric of their family. Whenever Daniel had a tough day, Frosty knew. He would nuzzle against him, his soft purr a quiet reassurance that everything would be okay. If Daniel fell asleep on the couch after work, Frosty curled up on his chest, his small body rising and falling with each breath. One night, Emily sat across the room, watching them together, and realized something. Frosty hadn't just filled their home with love. He had filled something in Daniel that neither of them even knew was missing. The man who had once insisted he wasn't a cat person was now someone who couldn't imagine life without one. Frosty had taught them both something unexpected. Love doesn't always come in the way you expect. Sometimes it sneaks up on you in the form of a tiny, snow-white kitten with big, curious eyes. Sometimes the thing you think you don't want turns out to be the thing you needed all along. And sometimes, the best family members are the ones who choose you first. There are countless animals out there waiting for that same chance. To be loved, to find their person, to become part of a family that can't imagine life without them. If Frosty's story touched anyone's heart, visiting a local shelter could be the start of a life-changing journey. Somewhere, a cat, a dog, or maybe even a tiny kitten just like Frosty is waiting to change someone's life the way he changed theirs. Because when it comes to love, sometimes the best things happen when you least expect them.